It's trickling in. It is trickling down right now until the full fixture list for the NRL 2026 has been dropped. That, I assume, is actually tomorrow. I did put full draw release tomorrow. They could absolutely do me over here and put it out like early next week. But I do feel like it is being trickled down right now and just being filtered out from yesterday where we found out NRL round 1 draw. Go and check that video out if you haven't already. We analysed all the games. Today, we have seen the official Magic Round draw, the most exciting day, well, one of the most exciting days on the calendar. I can't say the most exciting because the NRL Grand Final and the finals are amazing, but the Magic Round draw has been completely dropped, as you can see over here, and then I would assume that tomorrow we do get the full fixture list, which we'll talk even further about. So let's get into it. Hey guys, how you going? So down BKR Sports. Let's go through all these Magic Round games, and there is a bit of an interesting vibe about it. It's not as, I feel like, as exciting in regards to the matchups as we're seeing from round 1. As we spoke about yesterday, there is a lot of really, really quality matchups that round 1 has to offer. With Magic Round, we do need to see how the season plays out before we can really get an idea about how these games will play out, because I'm pretty certain last year, at the beginning of the year, I can't remember what it was, I feel like last year at the beginning of the year, we had like a good thought process about Magic Round, and then when it actually came to May, this year it's at May 15th and 17th, when it actually came to May, there were a lot of games that looked like they were dribble matchups and weren't going to be that great overall. So we don't really know anything about how the teams will be when Magic Round comes, especially now, and even at the beginning part of the season, we need to see a good 4 or 5 games first, or even 3 games, if we can start to get a feel about how Magic Round will play out. But the games that they have got is the Sharks versus the Bulldogs on the Friday, the Rabbitohs versus the Dolphins on the main centre stage Friday as well. Then you go to the Saturday games, 3 games, Tigers versus Manly, Roosters versus the Cowboys, and the Eels versus the Storm. Then you go to Sunday, where you're getting the Titans versus the Knights, the Warriors versus the Broncos, and the Panthers versus the Dragons. And a very interesting selection here for a bye. Like, there is an understandable part to it, and there is also a what on earth are you doing part to it. But with that being said, just to clarify, the NRL draw has been done completely by AI this year. So it's just deciding via whatever factors that it is taking in. And we'll talk about it in a second, but I do think it's probably more so to do with the traveling fans and the location, because you're not going to be seeing a Southeast Queensland team not make it, right? And we already have seen a couple of teams with the buys down the lower end of the table for Magic Round. So we'll talk about it further in a second, but let's get into the opening matchups here, the Friday. Now, also, don't forget, there is the Women's State of Origin that will be on the Thursday, so it is Thursday till Sunday of just straight-up rugby league. It's exciting to see all the fans from all the different places coming together and singing Kumbaya and just having these skull contests and getting kicked out and Caxton Street going crazy. It is an awesome vibe. If you haven't been to Magic Round, you do definitely need to get to it. It is a fantastic event. But the first day, Sharks versus the Bulldogs, this is a belter matchup. Like, this is a really, really good matchup that you can tell from, well, you should be able to tell from now, will be a really big way to open the NRL Magic Round. It is a huge game. Sharks obviously came into the preliminary finals last year. They ended up coming in 5th position, whilst the Bulldogs came in 3rd position, but the Sharks did end up beating the Bulldogs in that round 27 matchup and did progress further than the Bulldogs despite finishing lower than them. If these two teams play a similar brand of footy and are similar to how they were in 2025, this has all the makings for a really good game, because the Bulldogs in that round 27 matchup can make excuses. The Sharks can make the same excuses, though. That's why I don't really accept the Bulldogs' excuses of the game didn't mean anything. Well, the game also didn't really mean anything for the Sharks. The Bulldogs were locked in for 3rd and the Sharks were locked in for 5th, and there was really no excuses to take from that, and the Sharks did away with them really, really well and really confidently, which kind of set up a precedent for how the finals were going to go for the Bulldogs. But look, that is a huge game, and in a really meaningful game in the early to middle part of the season, you know, that is an absolute belter. Then you got the Rabbitohs versus the Dolphins on the Friday night. Now, we did actually speak about this in yesterday's video, where these two teams are playing in round 1. So Rabbitohs and Dolphins fans, you're just seeing the same team that you're playing in these little trickle down draw releases that we are seeing. Sydney Rabbitohs, obviously coached by Wayne Bennett. We all know that. The Dolphins were coached by Wayne Bennett, and this is at Suncorp Stadium, where is the home of the Brisbane Broncos. I'm sorry, Dolphins fans, but it is the home of the Brisbane Broncos, and Wayne Bennett was the coach there as well. So he's very well known for Suncorp Stadium. He knows this like at the back of his hand, and that is going to provide that kind of real solid matchup feel there. Like I said yesterday, though, I don't really know how the Rabbitohs are going to go into this season. I think they could be a really solid team, but their halves are a bit of a worry. Whilst the Dolphins, they've got high attack, but they've got less than no defense, like literally no defense. So we won't go too deep into it because you can go and get that full review yesterday. But I think it could be a decent game. Like, they're both teams that would predominantly prefer to attack rather than focus on their defense and then attack from their defense. So it does set that up, but I don't know if that's the best matchup for a Friday night. I probably would have put Rabbitohs versus Dolphins actually on the early Friday slot at 6 p.m. and then the Sharks versus the Bulldogs on that 8 p.m. Friday slot, because that is the better game there. Because if you look across the rest of the matchups here, there's nothing else that you would really put on that 8 p.m. time slot. And I just feel like Sharks versus Bulldogs at 8 p.m. and Rabbitohs versus Dolphins at 6 p.m. makes a lot more sense. And I know Google AI did it all, but you could have changed that because it's still the same day, it's still the same teams. It's just switched the two around. So I do feel like the Sharks vs Bulldogs should have been that 8 p.m. game. But overall, it's a decent enough Friday. Sharks vs Bulldogs is the belt. Rabbitohs vs Dolphins could be anything. It could be really poor, but it also could be really good. Just would have switched those matchups there. Then we go to the Saturday games of Tigers, Manly, Roosters, Cowboys, and Eels versus the Storm. Tigers, Manly. Look, what are we going to see from the Tigers this year? At least they're not getting a bye in Magic Round. Could you imagine, Tigers fans, if they received the bye in the first round and then in Magic Round they also received a bye? They might have flipped it. They might have absolutely flipped it. At least you would have known there's your 4 points, your freebie 4 points, but they would have absolutely flipped it. So that's why they definitely couldn't have gotten that Magic Round bye. But you never know what AI is going to do, I guess. Look, I really don't know how to picture this matchup. It doesn't have the makings of an absolute rip snorter. It really doesn't. But Manly, they're a whole different team this year. Jamal Fogarty's now their halfback. Cherry Evans is gone. Anthony Seibold is still their coach. And Kieran Foran does come in as an assistant coach, which is great. But I really don't know how to read both of these teams. And kind of like we spoke about, the Tigers in 2025 had the least amount of injuries across the NRL, like over 230 odd less collective injuries across games than the South Sydney Rabbitohs did. They finished equal with the Rabbitohs there in fifth last, but they were equal fourth last there with the Rabbitohs. Just their points differential was a little bit better. So I am a little bit concerned and worried about the Tigers if injuries do hit and how their depth is looking and what they are able to achieve in 2026. I know Tigers fans will hate me for saying that and suggesting that, but I am giving you my honest opinion, whether you like it or not, to be fair. But you can tell me why I'm wrong in the comment section. So that is a relatively underwhelming game, but there is going to be filler games, and that's why it's at 3 p.m. It's not at one of those prime time slots because it isn't one of the big time matchups of the weekend. I think that if you're going based off of this season, sure, you probably take it Manly, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Tigers get up too. So this could actually end up being a really good game, but it's more so on the 50-50 marker, and I'd be leaning to one of the lesser games of the weekend as we currently speak, which is what 3 p.m. suggests. Then you go to the Roosters versus the Cowboys, where another match that there's a little bit of something here, but it is still very perplexing how this one will go. The Roosters have a very strong team this year. I don't know how they'll use Cherry Evans, whether they do just slap him into that 7 or whether they do put him into the 5'8", or whether they even think about putting him into another position, whether that be the 14 or whatnot. But then again, Connor Watson's there. But the point is that this Roosters team has a strong team. And if you haven't seen the Roosters Cherry Evans signing video, then go check that out for why I believe the Roosters will be very good rather than what the general consensus thinks they'll be pretty bad. Or not pretty bad, but it's a bad signing for Cherry Evans. I don't necessarily agree with that. But look, this game, to be honest with you, I would actually say that Tigers Manly might get me a little bit more excited than Roosters versus Cowboys. Cowboys do have a lot of attack, and I guess the Roosters do too, but I feel like this could be a blowout to the Roosters or the Cowboys, really, depending on who really turns up on the day. I think this could be a blowout. I don't even know if this will be a 1 or 12 game. I can see if the Roosters turn up and are red hot and have a little bit of defense to prevent this Cowboys attack, well, they can win this game by a mozza. But the Cowboys, if the Roosters don't turn up, they've got plenty of attack and can blow them out as well. If it's just one of those off days with the Roosters. So this could, I'm going to make an early prediction here and say this is a blowout for either team. Again, we don't know how these teams are going to be looking going into Magic Round right this current second, but I do feel like a blowout probably is coming there from one of these two teams. Then you go to the main game of a Saturday, and Eels fans are having a heart attack right now. They have seen the first round draw and the Magic Round draw, and they play that Melbourne Storm. Yeah, no, great team for them to play. They must be really excited about this 2026 season to start off with. But as we spoke about in the comment section on yesterday's video, we spoke about this with a subscriber, and he was pretty concerned that it was, well, he was basically saying like it's rigged, the Eels playing the Storm, they want us to lose. And I think we convinced him that it was a really good matchup for them because they've had such strong momentum coming into the 2026 season from 2025. And a lot of positive belief in Jason Riles and Mitchell Moses being in the team. Their depth does come into question there. If Moses isn't there, well, they are in absolute tatters. But with a fully healthy team, they can absolutely push the Storm. And I really think that they should be grateful, actually, to play the Storm in round one. Because even if you lose, okay, that's expected. Okay, just start from round two. If you win, do you realize how strong that sets up your season? That sets your season up so strong because you've just broken the record of the Storm since 2001. You have beaten the back-to-back grand finalists. Yes, they've lost, but back-to-back grand finalists. And you really go on with that year. I think that would really say that the Eels are a genuine contender. And that same process goes here for the Eels versus Storm on the Saturday at Magic Round. If you are chasing a premiership, then you cannot be scared of anybody. If you are chasing a premiership, you must beat the best to be the best. You cannot be scared. So I think Eels should be absolutely thankful that they're getting these difficult matchups because one, you're going to have a lot of eyes on these games. And also two, it sets you up to know if your team is going to be competitive as long as you don't get beaten by 50. Both these games set you up to be extremely competitive because you're playing one of the best teams in the competition over the last 20, 25 plus years as well. So I think Eels should be very happy about that. And I think on the flip side, this is tricky for the Melbourne Storm, especially in this game here. It's very tricky. Actually, no, especially in the first game, but it's very tricky because the Eels do have a lot of potential in 2026. People are still looking at the Eels like a really poor team. So if the Storm were to lose to the Eels, they'll face so much criticism. It's not like if the Storm lose to the Panthers, people are like, oh, the Panthers too good, Storm, haha. But if you lose to the Eels, the criticism will flow. The questions will be asked. And I feel like this is a very tricky matchup for them where they benefit from the 2 points, but it is a little bit of a lose-lose situation with the media where you won't get your recommendations, you won't get your golden stars for beating the Eels. But if you lose, then you just get absolutely slapped up. So I think Eels should be extremely happy about this, even if you were to lose. Just make it extremely competitive and set yourself up on a foundation. So those Saturday games, look, Tigers Manly, not the most enthralling. Roosters Cowboys, I do feel a blowout's coming there either side, probably more so Roosters, but either side. And then Eels Storm, I love it. I absolutely love it. And there is a bit of a rivalry there. So then we go to the Sunday, which is Titans versus Knights, Warriors versus Broncos, and Panthers versus the Dragons. Obviously, Titans versus Knights is going to get the early Sunday time slot. Get that out of the way early. From what we've seen this year in 2025, the Titans came second last and the Knights came last. Now, look, the Titans did beat the Knights both times last year when it was in Newcastle. They were down 20-0. I think at halftime and came back to win 24-20. And then in the follow-up game, the Titans did beat the Knights as well. So, look, as a Titans fan myself, I'm extremely excited about this matchup here, and it gives us a good chance. We did actually play, Titans vs Knights did actually play a couple of years ago at Magic Round. Really controversial game. Brian Kelly looked to have scored. Knights fans say he didn't. Titans fans say he did. The rest of the NRL community is 50-50 on it. Everyone's forgotten about it now. But the Knights did win that game. That was actually Keanu Kinney's first ever try that he scored in that game. I've got his jersey in my house. Really cool. But I'm looking forward to this matchup myself. I know you guys aren't. I can understand why people would feel like this is a dribble fest. Titans with Josh Hannay now, a whole new different setup, a whole maybe different team. Like there's still changes being made and whatnot. Let's see how Josh Hannay goes. And same with the Knights. Justin Holbrook is in and they'll have hopefully a fully healthy Callum Ponga. They'll have Dylan Brown. You know, they are really confident that they're going to improve this year with their high attack under Justin Holbrook, because that's where their biggest problem has been. But they did lose their defensive assistant coach also to the Titans, where their defense was known as really good for the first half of the year before it fell off in the back half because their season was just absolutely done and dusted. So there's actually a few little intriguing things here, and Justin Holbrook goes to play his old team. You know, this is the first game where Justin Holbrook will coach against his old team. Yeah, he was an assistant coach for the attacking at the Roosters, but as the coach, this is the first time he'll be taking on his old team, the Gold Coast Titans. That will create a little bit of a stir too. Then the Warriors versus the Broncos on Sunday. This is going to be huge. The Warriors, they make a massive crowd. They create a great atmosphere. The Broncos, they're going to be there. They're going to be rocking it. It is their home stadium. Now, I want to clarify here. People keep saying, why do the Broncos keep getting away games at Suncorp, it is because of membership and also because other teams want the financial intake as well, mind you. So the Warriors are benefiting from this and having it as their home game. But the Broncos, the Dolphins, cannot have a home game at Suncorp Stadium for Magic Round because then that would entitle all their members to their seats. Right? So then that means that you'll see, 35,000 Broncos fans there on the Sunday, and then it's only, 19,000 fans from, or what is it, 52,000 capacity for Suncorp, 19,000, 17,000 fans from the other teams. It's just unfair. So whilst I know people feel like it is unfair, the Broncos get the away game and they feel like they're always playing at Suncorp, it's unfortunately just the way it goes logistically because you cannot have them have a home game. But overall, in regards to this matchup, it's going to be absolutely massive. And I do feel like this could be the game of the weekend. If the Warriors can maintain their composure based off of 2025 and forget about the back end but focus on the front end, and they've got a healthy Luke Metcalf and a healthy Mitchell Barnett, this team really gets rocking under, I don't know, maybe Tanner Boyd as their halfback and Aaron Clark in there and Fisher Harris. Like, they've got a good team here still. And now they've got Lofiana Khan-Pereira on the wing as well. So I really do have a bit of hope here for the Warriors to keep on with it despite their poor back end. And the Broncos, they are the current champions. So they've got a lot to prove here. It's going to be a belter. I'm really excited about that game. I think that's probably the game of the round. And then you've got Panthers versus Dragons to finish it all up, which... No, no. That's look, it's probably no. I would have probably put Panthers versus Dragons maybe where the Roosters Cowboys is, and then Roosters Cowboys as the final game on the Sunday. Look, the Panthers should win this one with ease, really. If the Dragons do it, I'll be surprised. I think the Panthers will bounce back strongly this year. I don't know if they go and win the premiership, but they will bounce back quite strongly. And I just don't know if that's the game you want to have as your final game of the round, where it could definitely be a blowout. Actually, I guess I just said the Roosters Cowboys could be a blowout, and probably is a blowout. So I'm kind of suggesting both sides here, but I'm pretty confident the Panthers win that. Even though I've actually got a little bit of belief behind the Dragons getting a bit more consistency, it's just their halves. Until they sort their halves situation, I can't go full bore at them. I really can't. I can't just go, you know what, this team is going to be good. Their halves situation, and also now losing the depth of Kyle Flanagan, even though that didn't really pan out, King Tagia and Kyle Flanagan, it just doesn't get you going. So I really do strongly feel the Panthers will get a pretty convincing win there. And you don't want to end Magic Round off with a huge blowout. You want it to be an exciting game, or you want it to go down to the wire and be heavily competitive. So please, Dragons, please put in an effort and compete in this game, because if you don't, then it just kind of sets... Well, I guess if Warriors and Broncos / Titans versus Knights, mainly Warriors Broncos, that is the mainstay of that Sunday. That needs to be a great game. It needs to be the game of the weekend, because then people won't really care too much about the Panthers versus Dragons. To kind of wrap it all up, it'll mainly be that Warriors-Broncos, and everyone will still be on the hype in the Warriors versus Broncos game and won't really care too much about the Panthers versus Dragons. So as a neutral perspective, I get Panthers and Dragons fans, you're excited for that. I'm fully aware of that. Please, Dragons fans, I'm not just trying to shit on your club. I'm just saying that right this very second, that's not necessarily a game that I would like to see as the final game of the round, because it does look like currently you would be thinking the Panthers get a pretty big result there, and you don't want to finish it up there. So, look, again, Dragons, will talk more about your team and the benefits that you do have and the pros you do have later on in the year, or even early next year, as we do our warm-ups for the 2026 season. For the time being, it's not great and not exciting as we speak. And we finish up with the Raiders going to buy. This is harsh. They obviously won the minor premiership last year, did get bounced out in straight sets. You know, they are from Canberra. They do look to either take teams that aren't showing massive social interaction during Magic Round, far enough location away, and not doing too well. The not doing too well part doesn't apply to the Raiders. I guess the social interaction and social media would make sense, and the location does make sense. You're always going to see the Melbourne Storm there because they're a big-time team. If the Melbourne Storm were down the bottom of the table, I guarantee you that the Storm would eventually miss Magic Round. But while they're up the top end of the table, you can't make a miss. So the Storm are always out of it. The three Southeast Queensland teams with Dolphins, Broncos, and Titans are always out of it. The Cowboys are going to bring a great attendance, so the Cowboys are always going to be there as well. The Warriors bring a great attendance. They're always going to be there as well. Realistically speaking, you could consider Manly. You could consider Cronulla, but they're a mainstay at the top of the table at the moment. You're not going to do it to the Rabbitohs and the Roosters. I guess you could consider the Eels. The Panthers, obviously not. Bulldogs, obviously not. So you are really limited to teams like the Tigers, the Knights, I guess the Raiders now. I know that they are going to prefer to do it to the Tigers, the Knights, and whatnot, and the Raiders. And if the Sharks weren't great, I would not be surprised if Cronulla did miss it in the near future. But it'd be great when the Perth Bears come in because then there won't be a bye. Everyone will get to play. But for the time being, next year will actually be the last time there is... No, actually, this is the... No, sorry. No, because 2026... Yeah, next year is the last time there is a bye because then in 2027, the Perth Bears come in. But then when Papua New Guinea come in, then there'll be another bye. And then we need to bring that South Island New Zealand team in. So there's the Magic Round. The top 3 games for mine will be Warriors, Broncos on top for mine. The second best game that I'm looking at is... Well, right now, I'm really excited about Eels versus Storm and then the Sharks versus the Bulldogs. They're the 3 mainstays. That's why I think Sharks Bulldogs should have been that 8 p.m. game because then you've got 8 p.m. game, the big one, Sharks Bulldogs. The 7:30 p.m. game, the big one, Eels versus Storm. The 6 p.m. game, no, that's not the big game. But the 4 p.m. time slot is the best time slot on Sunday. So no, that would have had the 3 best time slots. 4 p.m. Warriors Broncos huge. 7:30 p.m. Eels Storm huge, and then I would have loved that 8 p.m. Sharks versus Bulldogs, but it is what it is. But there we go, guys. That is my analysis of Magic Round. I hope you have enjoyed. Obviously, hit that like button and subscribe if you're new around here. I want you to comment below what your favorite matchup looks like, what you think is going to be the big time game of the weekend, and how excited you are for it. Let me know your thoughts about how I've talked about the teams in this video. But I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. See ya.